grab one from a nearby row because I want everyone to be able to see and follow. And if you could go to page 1049. Page 1049. Actually, that'll be the second place to go to. Start at 1041. 1041. Put the yellow ribbon there, 1041. I'm looking to make sure everybody's got a book. 1041. And as a tiny bit of prelude to sermon, I'll share that there's an amazing church that uses this space on Sunday morning. We kind of share a home. And at that service, they have notes that people are supposed to take with guiding questions and notes about the highlights. And since we don't actually write on Shabbat, it's considering a part of creation, I don't always hand those out. That means you're going to have to remember 3 key questions, 2 key takeaways, and 1 aphorism for your refrigerator. Okay? That's what will, all of that in the next 18 minutes. Aphorism for the refrigerator. How many of you keep aphorisms written in places? Just a couple of you. Wow, I love stuff on my fridge and on my mirror and on my desk. This is one to write down even if you're not an aphorism on a refrigerator person. It's from Elie Wiesel, who's a Holocaust survivor. And Elie Wiesel once said, if the only prayer you say throughout your life is thank you, that will be enough. So I want to build on Sarah's sermon, Sarah's drush, and I want to talk today about the power of gratitude. By the way, note that he says that the prayer is simply saying thank you. It's not even thank you, God. A lot of people get caught up with, do I believe, do I not believe, what does God do? Let prayer be that which comes from your heart. And if you can say a prayer of thank you, it will change you forever. And the more you say thank you, the more it changes you. So takeaway practice number 1 is think about how you say thank you, where you might do it more, how it might benefit you. I think that especially now, when the world seems to me like a difficult place on many levels, gratitude helps us get through the day in a different kind of way. By the way, this is a different sermon that I've given about this even 10 years ago, because so much research has been done about the impact of gratitude. And, you should read that. Gratitude makes you healthier. Love that. Of course, eat right and exercise. But gratitude helps a lot. It increases positive emotions, which shouldn't surprise you. But it also, they find people who have gratitude regularly have a decrease in negative emotions like anger. It lifts our sense of self-worth. Simply saying thank you. We deal with stress better. Not only do we become healthier, here's the one that interests me so much. We're more likely to make moral decisions. Not always. But if you practice gratitude, you are more likely to make moral decisions. That's a lot. By the way, I'd add one more. That sense of when life is less than perfect, it helps you move forward each day. It was a long time ago, but I deepened my gratitude practice when my wife went through cancer treatment. And it changed how I experienced that difficult time. I had some perspective. I had an ability to see that there was still some good. When life is less than perfect, after I read the newspaper in the morning, I go to my gratitude journal. I write about things that I'm grateful for. Today I want to talk about how Jewish practice is connected to gratitude. And by the way, it's not uniquely Jewish. Almost every faith and even Every piece of wisdom that may not be faith connected has a sense of how gratitude changes you. And I want you to come away with some takeaways. One, the question, how might I deepen my gratitude? And I want to suggest that it's actually hard work. It's hard work because I don't think that's how we're wired. So question number one is, how do we deepen our gratitude? Question two that Sarah really dealt with is, why is gratitude so hard? Why is it that so many of us live with dissatisfaction? If we're talking at Kiddush and we're going back and forth about why are so many people ungrateful, why might I be ungrateful? That's the place to start. By the way, this might be too much, but I believe that we are kind of wired to complain. We're wired to feel like it's never enough. We're wired to overlook life's blessings. That's the description of who we are in the Torah, and it continues to today. Sir, you captured it so perfectly. What do we do throughout the wilderness? We kvetch. We complain. There's not enough food. When food always gets provided, that manna didn't taste too bad. We don't like the taste of the manna. There's no water. By the way, water had come all of the time. It seems that all we did throughout the Torah was focus on our travails, on what we thought we didn't have, on what wasn't working, and we had zero gratitude. And this week's portion does something interesting. Gratitude and dissatisfaction aren't always related to having something. He says sometimes it's connected to having too much, which is what Sarah did with this in such an interesting way. Now go to 1041. Now go to 1041. It starts with, when you've eaten your fill, give thanks to the Lord your God for the good land which God has given you. We're going to come back to that. But then it immediately says, take care lest you forget the Lord your God. You stop keeping commandments, God's rules, God's laws, which I teach you. When you've eaten your fills, when you've built beautiful houses that you live in, just like us. When your herds and flocks have multiplied, we have so much. Your silver and gold have increased. We are so blessed. Everything you own is prospered. Be careful lest your heart grow arrogant and you forget the Lord your God. Go down to 17. Here's what happens when you are blessed. You start to say to yourself, it was my own power and might of my own hand that I have all of this wealth. Remember on that day that it's God from whom you got wealth. This to me is so interesting because it says we get so used to everything we have that we get blasé. We stop seeing the amazing gifts we have. We start to take credit for every success. We become arrogant. When things are good, we forget to be grateful. Sarah, it was so interesting studying this with you, because you immediately latched onto this and said, I see that all the time, Rabbi. We all have so much, and we're not grateful for it. We just want more and more and more. And it's never enough, and what we have, we don't say thank you for. Is it ego? Is it that sense of how we're wired? We take the credit. We don't have perspective of where things come from. Is there a part of us that, as we're wired, overlooks things? Is there a part of us that wants more and more and more and more? One of the wisest books about parenting that I've ever read was by Wendy Mogul, who wrote a book called The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. And she shares this ancient adage. One who has 100 wants 200. That's how we are. That's who we are. So what do you do in light of that part of us that is not wired for gratitude? What do we do with that part of us that's wired to always want more? What do we do with that part that's wired with it's never enough? Moses gives us 3 answers. He gives us more, but 3 that I want to share today. One, it's counterintuitive. He says, here's how you find gratitude. Remember history and your story. For him, the worst thing we can do is forget how we came from slavery to freedom, how we were sustained during the tough times. And his revolutionary idea is that we engrave this on people's souls through holidays where we reenact those tough times. Passover, we remember we were slaves. Prayers, where we remember where we came from, what we overcame, how we were cared for. It's why we study this. When you know your story, you feel gratitude. It's interesting to me in talking sometimes to people who've come from countries where there was oppression, and now they're here in America. They appreciate where they are because of where they were. But oh, how quickly we forget. We forget in a generation, because most of us, well, some of us actually are living that. And some of us, our ancestors lived it. And for us to remember our story so we're grateful for what we have is a powerful antidote to ingratitude. Connected to that, Moses wants to instill in us a mindset of not taking credit for all our accomplishments. By the way, I think here in the Silicon Valley, we tend to do that. Look what I've done. Look at my business. I built this. Look at this shoal. Look what I've done here. We tend to take credit. There's this little part of us that has trouble recognizing how much so many did to allow us to achieve what we have achieved. There's a tiny little book I would recommend to you. It's an hour-long read. It's called Thanks 1,000 by A.J. Jacobs. You may remember him. He wrote the book called The Year of Living Biblically. He's funny. And his book, he says, I want to thank everyone who was responsible for my cup of Starbucks coffee in the morning. And he starts to think about it. And he says, I need to go to Chile because that's where they got the copper for the wiring in the coffee roaster that's used at Starbucks. I need to go to the coffee warehouse and I need to talk to the pest control worker who makes sure that the coffee warehouse is all good. I need to talk to all the people who are moving stuff around in that warehouse. I need to talk to the people who are driving the trucks from the warehouse to the coffee stores. I need to go say thank you to the baristas, to the growers. And over the course of the book, he thanks, how many people do you think are connected to that nice cup of coffee? Almost 1,000. And he goes and he tries to thank you. Thank you for the copper that you provided for the roaster. And it's extraordinary because you know what people's response to him was almost inevitably? Thank you for seeing me. When you see all of the people who went into who you are, to what is a blessing to you, you hold it with humility. That arrogance that Moses worried about left. And so take away behavior. I'm going to ask you to think more deeply about how you might express gratitude. And one of them is to think of all of the people who have contributed to the blessings of your life. So the first thing Moses says is tell the story. And as you tell the story, you are appreciative of every part of it. The second thing he does is he says, have rituals for saying thank you. Rituals for saying thank you. Not to put you on the spot. How many of you have a ritual of saying thank you for food? A couple of you. Okay, all the rest of you. This is such a good idea. I love saying a blessing before I eat and after I eat. It changes me. And if you knew that a little behavior could change you, why wouldn't you do it? So I want to push you who may not have that ritual, think about adding it into your life in your own way. Go back to verse 10. I want to look at it really carefully. Hebrew, ve'achalta, you will eat. V'savata, you will be satisfied. Uve'erachta, and you will bless, which means thanks. By the way, note that the blessing is after the meal. By the way, almost every other religion, things are done before you do it. Think about your faith tradition. Judaism, it says do it afterwards. And some of you may be saying, but Rabbi, don't we say all of our blessings beforehand? We do, that's rabbinic. But in the Bible, you do it after. And I think the reason we do it after is sometimes after a good meal, we're in that place of, wow, it's all good by me. I don't need to be thinking about gratitude right now. I just need to loosen my belt one notch. This says afterwards, when you might get forgetful, when you might get arrogant, when you might not be aware of where everything came from, that's the time you give blessing. We pause, and it changes us. Saying a blessing after I eat has impacted behaviors that I know I need to work on. I sometimes eat on the run. And when I slow down and stop and say a blessing, boy, that changes the eat on the run behavior. I have to take a moment and appreciate. And so I want to encourage you to have some spiritual practice of gratitude for the daily blessings. It will change you. It really, really will. Blessings are said throughout the day in Judaism. I don't want you to be juggling two books, but those of you who were here at the beginning, in the prayer book, we started the service with a series of blessings. Blessed are you, God, who opens my eyes, who lets me stand up. Blessed are you, God, who, the second you begin life with an awareness, Judaism says you're supposed to say 100 blessings a day. It changes you. It changes you. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote, Jewish prayer is an ongoing seminar in gratitude. Can I live that? Can I incorporate that into my life a little bit more? When you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to say, Mode ani lefanecha. God, I'm grateful before you, shechazarta bi nishmati, that I'm alive, that my soul has returned. And so ritual connects us to values. Ritual, which is just rote words, is meaningless. Ritual that has us thinking about values changes us. So number one, story. Number two, the whole picture connected to one. Number three, ritual. Here's number four. Moses teaches us to nurture gratitude by redirecting desire. I want you to hold on to that one. Moses teaches us to nurture gratitude by redirecting desire. I desire to eat. I need to redirect that and think about those who may not have food. Now go forward a couple pages, page 1049, to what I actually think may be one of the most important verses in the whole Torah. Verse number 18, it's one where the Hebrew matters. It says, God, here's what God does. God upholds the cause of the fatherless and the widow, befriends the stranger. The translation of befriends is actually one that I wish wasn't there, because the Hebrew is ohev. What does ohev mean in Hebrew? Love. It's not God befriends, God loves the stranger and the widow and gives them food and clothing. So we go back to that verse about food and we say, food we're supposed to be grateful for. Food, because we are so blessed with it, we're supposed to be sure that those who don't have it have. And clothing. And then it says, Ve'ahavta et hager, you shall love the stranger, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. We weave our story into how we care about others. That sense of gratitude leads us to awareness of those in need. For me, is the most powerful impact of being grateful. Thank you, God. And God, for these things of which I am thankful for, let me be aware of those who don't have them. Let me be aware of those who do not have food and give it to them. Let me be aware of those who might not have books and be sure that they can read, because that is a fundamental need. And the second we start to think about that, we face reality in a way where we're motivated to make changes. This number should shock you. There are 47 million people in America living with food insecurity. By the way, think about that number. 47 million people in the most prosperous country in the world living with food insecurity. And how can we enjoy our food and not say we have an obligation to help them? By the way, that number I think is going to get worse. Do you know how many people, I tell this to my Zion class, any of you who remember, I will be very pleased. How many people a month does Second Harvest Food Bank of Silicon Valley provide food for? Any of you remember? 500,000. In our direct vicinity, there are 500,000 people who are in need of food. And honestly, it's unconscionable that you can't hear that number and be aggrieved and pained. You need to be. And as we sit with gratitude for our blessings, we need to let it change us and redirect us so that we make a difference in that. We're blessed with abundance. Let's share it with others. So here's what I'm asking. Let gratitude fill your life. Let it slow you down so you can acknowledge all the blessings you might take for granted. Let your awareness grow of blessings you overlook. Question number 1, why are people not grateful? Question 2, how can I deepen my gratitude? Question 3, might I weave in some ritual and practices to deepen my gratitude? Question 4, where can I take my gratitude and let that redirect to those who may not have what I have? Question 5, what else might I do to deepen my gratitude? Sarah, I love that you started a gratitude journal and you stuck with it. There was a family here who said, well, Rabbi, we started gratitude every night and it got to be the same old thing every night. Well, the nice thing about Sarah's journal is that it asks some leading questions. Go around your table at night or sit with your journal. What joys did I experience today? What am I grateful for? What am I proud of? What in nature fills me up and gives me awe and makes me smile? Who can I thank? It should be every teacher that you have after every class. It should be everyone who hosts me. And Mary and Gabi, I want every person here to come and say thank you for that beautiful kiddush. Those things make a difference. It could be a doctor or a nurse who gave of their time in order to help heal you. It could be a server, a person at a checkout counter. Question number 6, who else can I thank that we sometimes overlook? This will change your life. That's quite a claim. This will change your life, and I believe it. So let me end with a final story. In the confusion that followed Abraham Lincoln's assassination in 1865, his pockets were emptied into a box. And years later, his son gave it to a granddaughter, and in 1937, it was given to the Library of Congress. And they looked and said, what was in Abraham Lincoln's pockets? So what did they find? They found a pair of glasses. They found a handkerchief and a wallet. And the wallet had 8 newspaper clippings that were all laudatory of the president. He needed to hear thank you. We all need to hear thank you. Lincoln, who withstood brutal criticism, apparently cut out the articles that praised him and kept them with him. And I imagine that revisiting that gratitude and appreciation helped him through the tough times. I keep a folder of thank you notes that I receive. They fill me up. They mean a lot. We all need praise and appreciation. So my blessing to all of us is to let words of gratitude be on our lips and in our hearts, and maybe even in our wallets. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And Sarah, clearly today's sermon was inspired by you. It's a rare young person who lives with both the awareness of her own behavior and humanity and the awareness of what you can do about it than you. You immediately ask the hard question, why are we so dissatisfied? You immediately said, let me do something to develop it in myself. You immediately gravitated to something you could do to transform gratitude into care for others. What an extraordinary person. Your heart and your soul have touched us. Your kindness and your gentleness move us. And to celebrate together a day like today, where you have such embrace for who you are and the people in your life, nothing greater than that. My bracha of Shehecheyanu comes from being with someone like you on a day like today. So I wish you Mazal Tov. I thank you for touching us in such beautiful ways. And I will take you next door so that the whole community, the people who are in the Power Hour, can wish you Mazal Tov. And then you'll come back in time to do a good Yismachot.
We're turning to page 184 for the Musaf service. Thank you, Rabbi Ezra, for that teaching, and of course, Yasher Koach to Sarah for teaching us earlier before we heard Torah. The Chatzi Kaddish is on page 184. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמד יברך ירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומך